What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MMA meeting. Let's talk the Weasel podcast, where we talk all things MMA. There's a lot of MMA news to talk about. So Alex Pereira talked about the Magomed Ankalaev fight. He was on the Ariel Helwani show, and he talked about the injuries, which is being taken as he's making excuses as to why he lost. To be fair to Alex, which I don't think is even talked about much, he didn't really want to talk about the injuries. He said he'll talk about it when he wins the belt. And Alex even said that Ankalaev probably had injuries too. I don't think it was Alex really making excuses. I think it was like Ariel was bringing out the excuses for Alex. I mean, it was very obvious that he didn't want to talk about the injuries, and Ariel just kept asking him about it. During the interview, Alex literally told him that he would talk about the injuries when he wins the belt. Then Ariel asks him, were the injuries so bad that you thought about not fighting? It's like, bro, nah, man, I don't think Alex was making excuses, bro. Ariel's asking him multiple questions about the injuries, and it's like, Alex is a guest. He's on your show. Give the guy respect. If he doesn't want to talk about his injuries, then stop asking about his injuries. Now, here's the thing about excuses. Excuses could be a way for a fighter to cope with the fight, or it can actually be a realistic factor of the fight that is not implying as to why they lost, right? Especially when that same fighter says that the opponent probably had injuries too, so don't take the injuries as an excuse as to why they lost. I think fighters should be able to talk about their injuries even after a loss without it coming off as they're making excuses. Every fighter goes into the octagon with something, with some kind of injury, some kind of illness, bumps and bruises, whatever it is. I think with Alex being asked the question about his injuries, I don't think that's him trying to cope with the fight, right? Because he's not the one bringing it up. It's Ariel Helwani asking him like 4 or 5 questions about it. But Alex did say that he thought he won the fight, but then later said that the fight was so close it could have been a draw. You can't really have a draw unless there's a 10-8 round, 10-7 round, or a point deduction. If there's none of those, then a fight cannot be a draw. And Ankalaev won the fight. He did talk about the punch at the end of the second round. Now, this is through translation, so it's hard to really tell what Alex was trying to say, but he said the punch landed, but it wasn't so much that he needed to recover and take like an extra round off or something like that. I get what he's saying. It does sound like he was coping about getting stunned from a punch from Ankalaev, but it's great to hear from Alex after the fight. But we're going to get the rematch. Put him Ankalaev again. It's actually kind of crazy how many fans Big Unk has now. Before the fight, it seemed like nobody was his fan. After the fight, he has so many fans now. It's crazy. So I think the rematch is going to be even bigger and hopefully better. Now, I think the rematch is going to be more exciting than the first fight. For sure, it has to be, right? There's no way the second fight is just like the first or even more boring. Alex has to be moving forward more, throwing punches and trying to get the knockout. He can't try to beat Ankalaev by just throwing leg kicks at distance. He needs to be somewhat more aggressive, somewhat more pressuring. And that does fall into the counter-striking of Ankalaev, but it's still his best chance. The only way Alex is going to win this fight is if he outsmarts Ankalaev in the striking, while also pressuring forward. The whole greasing thing was kind of stupid in the first place, I thought. That's also like, I don't know why Ankalaev's coach was talking about that. The whole greasing gate is like GSP and BJ Penn was different because GSP's coach was actually putting Vaseline on his body. You can literally see it in between the rounds. Because of GSP's coach, that's the reason now the coaches can't have Vaseline in the corner, right? It was that Muay Thai coach. And you guys see the Brendan Moreno and Steve Erceg card? That's a sleeper right there. So Moreno versus Erceg is a great fight. I like that fight a lot. I mean, there was nothing like March 2nd to August 17 of 2024 Steve Erceg. There was nothing like it. He was the flyweight hope, right? That was the guy everybody wanted to see actually make it big, and then he got knocked out by another guy that Pantoja's already beaten before. So the fight with Moreno is going to be great. The co-main event's good. Kelvin versus Joe Pyfer and Raul Rosas Jr. versus Vince Morales. And I guess I'll just go through my picks on the card. I will say Markel Medeiros wins by a TKO in the second round. Jamal Emmers wins by a decision. Rafa Garcia by a decision against Vink Pickle. I think Lupita Godinez wins by a decision against Julia Palostre. Even though Godinez is on a 2-loss streak, I think she is more skilled overall. And Christian Rodriguez beats Costa by a decision. If Costa was undefeated, he would have no chance of beating Rodriguez. He'd be fighting C-Rod. And C-Rod is undefeated against undefeated fighters. Adebayo Gautier is going to destroy Jose Medina. Tall and long fighter for the weight class. Middleweight at 6'4", 81-inch reach. Knockout artist. Has only won by a decision once on a 5-fight knockout streak. And Jose Medina's not that great. I mean, maybe he could grapple his way to neutralize Gautier's stand-up, but I think Gautier should get a performance bonus knockout. Ronaldo Rodriguez is going to beat Kevin Borjas by decision or late submission. David Martinez destroys Simon Oliveira. Oliveira's got a good guillotine, but he cannot stand up with Martinez at all. I'm going with Martinez by knockout in the second round. I think Raul Rosas Jr. beats Vince Morales easily. Second round submission. Joe Pyfer defeats Kelvin Gastelum by decision. Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. If Drew Dober was in his prime, I would say he wins. but he's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. He took a lot of damage against John Silva. He got knocked out by Matt Frevola. He's still a good striker. He's still powerful. He's very tough. Torres also hits very hard. He has good submissions as well, but sometimes he gets too aggressive and he could run into some of the counter shots from Drew Dober. So it's a pick him on the betting odds. That's a very close fight. I'm gonna go with Manuel Torres, but that fight could go either way. So Torres by 3rd round submission. He could drop Dober and then choke him out or something. And then the main event, Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno. He looked amazing against Albazi. If it was the same Moreno that fought Royval in that last fight, I would go with Steve Erceg 100%. But because he was able to perform after, I don't know what happened in the Royval fight, but the Moreno that fought Albazi should win this fight by decision. It should be a good one though. Steve Erceg has got good boxing as well. He's a really good scrambler. I think it's stylistically more competitive than the Kai Kara France fight could be. Moreno's not a big puncher. He's a technical boxer with good scrambles. He has good trips on the clinch. And Erceg can mirror a lot of that. So it should be a highly skilled competitive fight, which Moreno I think wins by decision. And for the card, I would say the quality of the card is like a 3 or 4 out of 10. I think the London card on paper was better, like leading into it. But who knows? Maybe the Moreno Erceg card could perform better, which wouldn't be that difficult. That London card was an absolute sleeper, literally. And while I'm at it, let's go to the next card. Vanessa Demopoulos versus Talita Elenkar. I'll go with Demopoulos by decision. Victor Henry versus Pedro Falcao. I'll go with Henry by decision. Loma Lukbunmi versus Estela Nunez. I'm going with Lukbunmi by decision. Reese McKee versus Daniel Frunza. I'm going with Frunza by a knockout. 2nd round. Diane Barboza versus Diana Belbita. I'm going with Barboza by decision. Davey Grant versus Daniel Santos. That's a good fight, right? So the first good fight of the card. I'm going with Grant by decision. Should be a close fight though. Then Luis Guruli versus Ode Osborne. I'm going with Guruli by decision. Robert Valentin versus the GOAT Therese Finney. His first fight in the UFC. I'm going Finney by 3rd round TKO. Gerald Mearshar versus Brad Tavares. It's a good fight between veterans. We're going GM3, 3rd round submission. That's a close one. It could go either way. Brad Tavares has a good chance of winning that. But no, if it's a veteran fight, you got to go GM3. Even though Brad Tavares has been in the UFC for such a long time, and he made his UFC debut in 2010. He's still fighting. That's crazy. Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Martin Boudet. I'm going to go with Kennedy. This fight shouldn't be that close. I think he wins by like maybe 2nd round TKO. Then we'll go to Cortavius Romius. He's fighting Chung Ho Lee. I'm going to go Chung Ho Lee by decision. Joe Anderson Brito versus Pat Sabatini. 100% going Joe Anderson by 2nd round TKO. And then the main event, Josh Emmett versus Lerone Murphy. Josh Emmett's coming off the knockout against Bryce Mitchell. Dude, it's been that long since he's fought? December 2023. Did he get injured? I don't remember why he hasn't fought. That was such a big win for him. He should have just like capitalized on that right away. Get another fight going. But you know what? I'm going to go with Josh Emmett. He's a plus 205. Yeah, I'm going Josh Emmett. I'm not going to let that sway my pick. Nosferatu is going to claim Murphy's soul. No, I'm kidding. And then for UFC 314, I'll do a video on that for sure. The UFC is going crazy this year, man. And did you guys see they wanted to pay Artem Vakhitov, the Glory Kickboxing World Champion? They were throwing him the bag. 10K to show, 10K to win? Why would Vakhitov walk away from such fortune? Astonishing negotiation tactics right there. Pay the Glory Kickboxer 10K and 10K, like as if he had nowhere else to go. Okay. Well, there goes one promising talent. So, I mean, they'd rather keep Ode Osborne. That is so disrespectful. They try to give him 10K. It was either 10 or 12K. It was the standard for every Contender Series fighter. And I think Taliesin Teixeira made 10K to show, 10K to win for his first UFC fight. That's insane, man. They let Vakhitov go, but they keep guys like Ode Osborne and Victor Henry and a bunch of other fighters. The heavyweights, they have no choice. They don't have many of them. There's literally 30 heavyweights on the roster, so that means half of them has to be ranked. Taliesin Teixeira won one time. He won his UFC debut, and he's ranked number 15. It would have been so cool to have Artem Vakhitov in the UFC. He could have fought in the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions. The UFC was probably thinking like, Alex is not going to be fighting that much longer. So maybe Vakhitov would not be able to speed run into Alex fast enough for them to capitalize on that or something. Vakhitov, if they signed him, he would have been one of the best kickboxers, maybe even the best kickboxer the UFC has ever signed. But they wanted to pay him a Contender Series salary. I mean, he did come from the Contender Series, but come on, man. That kind of strong arming works against like regional fighters because they have nowhere else to go. Well, where are they going to go? PFL and have one fight a decade? Or they could go to the one championship and become a Muay Thai fighter? There's nowhere else for them them to go, so they have to come to the UFC. Someone like Vakhitov went back to Glory Kickboxing, and now he's fighting Rico Verhoeven in June. What a fumble. Oh, and better news, the main event we've all been waiting for. I don't know if you guys heard about this. An actual insane fight, barn burner. Aaron Blanchfield versus Macy Barber, headlining the Apex Fight Night on May 31st. I could cry, man. Oh, and 2 title records are about to be broken. Tom Aspinall is about to be the longest reigning interim champion. He's only like 30 days away from Renan Barão. Crazy, man. And at the same time, Jon Jones is about to be the longest reigning heavyweight champion in UFC history. What about Belal and Brady double teaming Leon? Sean Brady is still making fun of Leon Edwards, and Belal Muhammad was having the time of his life when that fight was going on. Belal was a funny guy, man. He's like, what was he saying? He was like asking what time it was for Leon because he made that excuse. He goes, headshot dead. Sean copied my homework. I mean, yeah, they do fight similar, to be honest. Leon's gonna need a big motivational speech this round. They have to switch up the motivational speech. They gotta the coach has to say something different, you know? Maybe that can get through to Leon. Just how good is Belal Muhammad? Yeah, Leon's still on 5 a.m. time zone, and he fought the exact same. Don't let him bully you, son. What time is it in London? Asking for Leon. And then Sean Brady talking about how much he doesn't like Leon and making a bunch of jokes too and stuff. I think that short joke from Leon really got to Sean Brady because he hasn't let it go. Never make fun of Brady's height or he'll dominate the fight. And Daniel Cormier is warning Tom Aspinall not to provoke Jon Jones. What? When did DC become Jones' best fan? So this is what DC says about Jones to Tom Aspinall. He's very mean, he's durable, he's hard to fight. And Tom Aspinall is going to find that out, right? So yes, chill, I love the duck, I love all the fun, I love all that. But at the end of the day, when you get in there with that dude, don't start rethinking things. Because if you start rethinking things in there with that dude, he's going to run right through you. You cannot start going, hey man, it's a little harder than I thought. Because he is going to put it on you. So he's pretty much saying, once Tom Aspinall gets in there in the cage with Jon Jones, it could be a completely different experience for him than what he thinks it's going to be like. So it's all this build up, the ducking stuff, and Jon Jones is scared and all that. But once that cage door closes, it could be an entirely different thing for Tom Aspinall. I don't think so though. I don't think Tom is going to be like Ciryl Gane, right? Ciryl Gane was that kind of fighter where when he was standing across from Jon Jones, it looked like he was doubting himself. Now, Sergey Pavlovich is not anything like Jon Jones, but at the time when Pavlovich was knocking everybody out, right? He was the scariest man in the world. Everybody thought he was the most powerful, dangerous fighter in the division. Tom took that fight on short notice and he performed, right? He even said it himself that Sergey was a scary fighter and Tom knocked that guy out in the first round. So I don't think Tom Aspinall has that sort of issue with being starstruck standing across Jon Jones or Sergey Pavlovich or anybody else in that division. I think it's because Daniel Cormier has fought Jon Jones, that he thinks the guys that haven't been under the bright lights against the greatest are going to crumble under that pressure, but I don't really agree with that. There are some fighters that do, but then there's some fighters who rise to the occasion. What happened with Dominic Reyes? When Dominic Reyes stood across Jon Jones, he beat him. We saw him beat Jon Jones. He just didn't win on the scorecards. Same deal with Johnny Hendricks versus GSP and Jared Gordon versus Paddy Pimblett, all these other fights. Oh, and I did make those predictions 4 years ago about how the top of the lightweight division was going to look. So, okay guys, did I cook? It doesn't look great, okay? But how good can it actually be for a 4-year prediction of the rankings, Honestly, I think it's decent. I think it's pretty good. Yeah, the Groom and Atman Azaitar picks are way off, and even Fiziev is kind of way off. At one point, he was close. He was close enough. But Islam, Arman, Charles, and Gamrot, I think that's pretty good. They're close enough. And by the way, this is before Islam was champion. So number 1, Islam Makhachev. Again, when Charles was champ. I said in 4 years, as unpredictable as this sport is, I said Islam would be the best lightweight in the world, and he is. Okay, number 2, I said Rafael Fiziev. I was wrong on that, okay? I didn't think he would lose to Justin Gaethje twice like that. At one point, he was in the top 5, I think, but now he isn't. He's number 11. Number 3, I had Arman Tsarukyan. Hey, that's pretty good. 4 years ago, he's in the top 3. I had number 3, he's number 2. I think that's pretty good. Where was he back in 2021? Oh, give me that, dude. That was after he beat Matt Frevola. So he lost to Islam. He beat Olivier Aubin-Mercier, Davy Hamosh, and Matt Frevola. This is before he fought Gamrot, Yoel Alvarez, Christos Giagos. I think that's pretty good for a 4-year prediction. Charles Oliveira at number 4. Where was Charles Oliveira 4 years ago? Obviously, he was champ. But was that before the Gaethje fight? Yeah, way before the Gaethje fight. That was before Dustin. So that was after the Michael Chandler win, right after he became champion. I said he'd be ranked number 3 in the rankings. He's ranked number 2. Okay, so that's really close. He's ranked number 2. You gotta give me that. He's at least in the top 3. Then I had Guram Kutaladze. Okay, not so great. Not so great of a pick. He had potential, right? This is when Graham beat Mateusz Gamrot, I believe. Yeah, this is after the win against Mateusz Gamrot. After his UFC debut. Okay, he looked great in that fight. Little did I know he wasn't going to fight for nearly 2 years after that. And just barely fight in the UFC altogether. I think he had good potential. I think he was talented. I don't think it was that bad of a pick, honestly. I mean, I guess it was, but I don't think at the time it was that bad of a pick. Number 6, Mateusz Gamrot. He's ranked number 8. Yeah, so I wasn't correct. I think it's a decent pick after 4 years. Because where was Gamrot back then? Obviously, he fought after he lost to Guram. So yes, he beat Scott Holtzman. This is before. This is a day before he fought Jeremy Stevens. I think it's pretty decent. And then number 7, we don't talk about. I don't know what I was thinking with Emmett Zaitar. I mean, he must have been running through people. Okay, he was undefeated. He knocked out Kamaworthy and Timu Pakalin. Okay, Kamaworthy at the time was also on a good win streak. Knocked out Devontae Smith and submitted Luis Pena, who back then a lot of people were hyped up on. Okay, I see why maybe. I thought Emmett Zaitar could be number 6 in the rankings, but that was a horrible pick. Absolute horrible pick. And even after he lost to Matt Frevola, I completely jumped off that. There's no way he's going to be ranked that high. I think overall that's pretty good, right? How many people can make predictions 4 years from now and even get like a few of them correct, right? As unpredictable as the sport is, it's hard for people to make a prediction a year from now, let alone 4. It's hard for people to make predictions on the same night of fights, let alone 4 years later. Like, no ego. Like, I really think this is actually really good. I would like to see people make a 4-year pick of how the division is going to look in the future. And I wonder how many people would do better. Because this, I think, is pretty good. Well, it's not technically been 4 years, so maybe Rafael Fiziev and Guram can actually make a comeback. Fiziev fights Dustin, knocks him out or something crazy. So, yeah. Did you guys ever think about if weight classes fought each other in an all-out brawl? Do you know how insane that would be? Bro, the heavyweight and light heavyweight division, if all of those fighters, which I think have the least fighters on the roster, got together and had an all-out brawl with the rest of the roster in the UFC, if those two divisions got together, they would destroy the rest of the roster. Can you imagine all the blobs got together? Marcin Tybura and Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis, Mick Parkin, Shamil Gaziev, Waldo Acosta, all these guys got together. Bro, can you imagine the army of the blobs, led by Shamil Gaziev, fighting the welterweights, lightweights, and featherweights? They destroy all of them, bro. It'd be like, how many lightweights do you think Tom Aspinall could take out by himself? If Tom Aspinall fought Max Holloway and like Drew Dober, could he beat both of them at the same time? He could if he knocked them both out, like one shot each. Boom, boom, jabbed Max Holloway, dropped him, then beams Drew Dober with the right hand, sleeps him. He could. I mean, he's that powerful. He could land one shot on each and just KO them. But that'd be tough, you know, fighting two guys at the same time. But he has a whole army of heavyweights and light heavyweights with him. Okay, I don't think those two divisions could take on the entire roster because there's way too many. I think lightweight has 100 fighters, whereas heavyweight has 30. Maybe middleweight and up, those 3 divisions. Okay, so has nearly like 140 or 150 fighters. Welterweight has like 70, lightweight has like 100, featherweight has like 75, bantamweight has like 70, and flyweight's in the 40s. Can middleweight to heavyweight beat welterweight to flyweight? No, there's no way. There's too many of them. Dang. Welterweight and featherweight has that many fighters. That's crazy. Who would win? The heavyweight division versus the lightweight division. So there's like 30 heavyweights and there's like 100 lightweights. Who would win in an all-out brawl? The lightweights, right? For sure. I mean, there'll be some heavy damage that the heavyweights would cause, but I think at the end, there'll be more lightweights standing than heavyweights. Now, light heavyweight and heavyweight, which is about like 70 fighters total versus the 100 lightweights, then the lightweights will lose. I don't know, dude. Shamil Gaziev leading the army would be terrifying. Like, the lightweights would just run the other way in fear as they see the goat blob sprinting at them. Takes a few breaks out of exhaustion, but then it continues to sprint at them and starts knocking them out. It'd be insane. I think what really gives the lighter weight classes a big fighting chance against the heavyweight classes is that welterweight division. There's 72 of them. Like, that's crucial, right? Because there's no way one heavyweight can beat 2 welterweights, right? If the average heavyweight's like 250 or 240, the average welterweight is like 190. A heavyweight, depending on the matchups and depending how good the heavyweight is, I think like Tom Aspinall could possibly beat 2 lightweights if he's able to knock them out quickly. But can like Marcin Tybura beat 2 lightweights? No. Featherweights though, the average featherweight is like in the 170s. So there's like 70 or 80 pound difference, maybe like a 7-inch height difference. That's debatable. Can two bantamweights beat one heavyweight? So fighters who are in like the 150s, 160s, they could, but it'd be tough. Like if Amin Zahabi and Montel Jackson versus like Taliesin Teixeira, they could win. But honestly, I don't know, man. I think I'd pick Taliesin Teixeira. That guy's like 6'7", one punch knockout power against heavyweights. Imagine a bantamweight try to take his shots. They would get whiplash from just blocking the punches. So I think maybe one heavyweight could beat two bantamweights. Definitely would beat two flyweights. Featherweights is more debatable. Lightweights, I'd probably go with the lightweights winning. Welterweights definitely though. There's no way one heavyweight could beat two welterweights unless it's like the absolute ideal scenario. So let's go to the questions. We're going to start with Sushen Teacup. Hi Weasel, you're one of the reasons I have such love for this sport. Never change, brother. Thank you so much, man. 3 questions. Number 1, if Ilia beats Islam, will you rank him in the top 10 fighters of all time? And if yes, on what place will you put him? That's difficult because I've talked about it in my last video. So if Ilia beats Islam, that would be his 5th ranked win in his entire career. But 3 of those ranked wins would be Volk, Max, and then going up a division to fight Islam or beat Islam in this scenario. So I would not have him like super high or anything. I think I would have him above the heavyweights. So Stipe and Fedor. Maybe on the lower end of the top 10 because he needs more wins, right? Yes, he would beat 3 top 10 GOATs, but understanding that there's a stylistic matchup there doesn't automatically make him greater than those guys because they also have longevity. They also defended their title multiple times and all that sort of stuff. It's much harder to stay on top than it is beating a few top guys, right? So I can't put him above Islam and Volk and Max, but I would put him in the top 10, which is very rare. Like to only have 5 ranked wins and be in the top 10 is extremely rare. So I'd probably put Ilia at number 9 or something like that. And then your second question, if you put a UFC event with 3 title fights, which will be those title fights and how will the card look? So is this any title fight or reasonable title fights? Because if we're doing any title fight, I mean, Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, Islam versus Ilia, Khamzat versus Dricus, there's your 3 title fights. Those are your 3 biggest title fights in the UFC. And then the other 2 fights would be Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway 2 for the BMF title, which technically I guess is a 4th title. If not that, you could do Artem versus Charles again. And then the other fight would be Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan 2. That'd be an insane main card, which would never happen. And then your third question, will Khamzat, in your opinion, end up as the greatest middleweight of all time when he retires? He could be, but I don't think he's going to try to get 10 title defenses. I think he has another trajectory to become a double champ, triple champ. That seems more of his desired legacy, not necessarily to just defend as many times as he can. So I think he beats Dricus, fights Imavov, then, hopefully he gets 2 more title defenses. It's another reason why I want to see Ilia fight someone else at lightweight first, because 1 title defense, you move up, you need at least 3, I think. 3 title defenses should be the requirement. I think that's a good standard, and even for Khamzat as well, you know? So I like to see Khamzat fight Imavov, Bohayo, maybe Dricus fights his way back up to a title again or something, and then after goes up to light heavyweight, fights Ankalaev or something, then goes to welterweight and fights Sean Brady, whoever's the champ at the time. So Dricus, Imavov, Bohayo, Dricus again, Ankalaev, then Sean Brady. With those 2 as champions, Khamzat's one of the greatest of all time then, 100%. And staying undefeated too, he doesn't have to be the greatest middleweight. He's one of the greatest of all time in general. But I do think if Khamzat runs through Dricus, first round submission, he's going to be the biggest star in the UFC. And imagine all those other big fights they could put together. Now that would change things of how the UFC would do it, right? Because this is based off of a 3 title defense standard, then moving weight classes. But if Khamzat submits Dricus in the first round, the UFC is going to move very differently. Like they'll be jumping in weight classes for these super fights a lot quicker, just so they could capitalize on those big fights. Because after so long, they finally have another superstar, and they're going to try to make the best moves they could possibly make with Khamzat at the top. But thank you so much for the questions, man. And then we go to Nano Peach. Hello there. How would you change the sport from the entertainment aspect to fights to venues? You have full control. I would start headlining pay-per-views with more female fights. A way to give them more attention is to put them as a headliner on the pay-per-views. So that's exactly what I would do. The apex for every card would be stellar. 2 fight nights every week, each priced at $20. Conveniently, get rid of eye pokes once Jon Jones retires. Oh, and any fighter that throws a jab is instantly cut from the roster. For representation, you know, we want the regular casual fan to feel like they're represented in the sport. So therefore, we're going to actually get people from the bars to fight on the main cards. Perfect representation. That would be the greatest MMA promotion of all time. No, but I would increase the quality of the fight nights. The fight nights are very important, especially for the hardcore fans. And that might require to remove at least 1 fight night a month. So maybe 2 to 3 cards a month in order to stack the fight nights. Every main event on a fight night is going to matter for the division. So it's going to be number 1 contender contender fights, championship fights, bringing those back. It'd be awesome to have like Merab on a fight night or Pantoja or something like that. We had RDA versus Donald Cerrone on a fight night. Imagine having Islam Makhachev defend his belt. That'd be crazy. Of course, I wouldn't do that though because he's a star. I'll also increase the fighter pay so the heavyweight division isn't absolute slop. By increasing the fighter pay specifically for the heavier divisions, there will be better athletes because instead of going to basketball or American football, those great athletes would decide to come to MMA because it pays as much. Or at least that's something I would do. More passion for the promos and the posters and overall just promotion of the fights and fighters in general. Every champion will be promoted and the fighters are allowed to have their own sponsors in the fight. I would also get rid of the Apex entirely, only crowded arenas for the fights. I wouldn't do pay-per-views. I would do some kind of monthly subscription of maybe $20 or $30. A 3-title defense standard for champions who want to move to different weight classes. No title shots off of losses unless it's a robbery like Johnny Hendricks versus GSP or Dominic Reyes versus Jon Jones. That would be different. But if it's just a loss, you need to be coming off a win in order to get a title shot. And the number one thing I would just bring is passion. People that enjoy making the promos, enjoy making cool creative posters, and also it'll be up to the fans as to who gets the performance bonuses. I think that would be great. So those are some of the things I would do, let's say if I had my own MMA promotion. Your second question, chances of every fighting nerd becoming champion. I would say Caio Borralho has like a 30% chance. Carlos Prates has like a 35% chance. Mauricio Hufi has like maybe a 40% chance. And then John Silva maybe like a 50% chance. And how each champion and top 5 do in the weight class above them, men's and women's. I'll just do champions. So Uncle Ive will lose to Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones. Dricus will lose to Uncle Ive. Belal will lose to Dricus. Islam would beat Belal, as even Belal said he would. Ilia will lose to Islam. Merab will lose to Ilia, and Pantoja will lose to Merab, a very close fight. The Valentina would beat Juliana, again, and Weili will lose to Valentina. Your next question, how good was Shogun in his prime? He was very good, especially for his time, right? Obviously today, prime Shogun could do well against some fighters. He was especially good when there were soccer kicks involved. He may have had the best soccer kicks. When was Shogun's prime? Shogun's prime ended when he was like 32 years old. Like, this will probably be surprising. It's actually kind of crazy to think about. He was 33, I think, when he tripped on that skateboard against Ovince St. Preux. When he got knocked out by OSP, he was about 33 years old. No, man, back then, a lot of those fighters were taking a lot of damage in sparring. When Shogun and Aldo were sparring, the concept of CTE was not well known. In fact, I remember when Vanderlei said, taking punches to the head strengthens your chin. Oh yeah, but Shogun was fighting a lot longer than Jose Aldo. Not really, actually. Shogun's MMA debut was in November of 2002. Right, November of 2002. Jose Aldo made his MMA debut in August of 2004, less than 2 years later. That's one of the main reasons why Jose Aldo was not in his prime when he fought Volk, as much as people try to say he was. There's a reason why Jose Aldo was not in his prime when he fought Volkanovski. You could see it in the way he was fighting, right? It's not just he doesn't look slow, right? Fedor didn't look slow when he came back at like 40 years old. Fedor was still very fast, but he was clearly not the same fighter, right? And it's not just about speed. Fighters lose their primes differently. They're not all the same. Look at Jose Aldo's fights when he fought Ricardo Lamas, Chad Mendes a second time, Kenny Florian. Look at that Jose Aldo, and then watch the Volkanovski fight. It's not the same fighter. He's still very good at the time, right? But he wasn't in his prime. And you see the difference even before that. Watch both the Holloway fights. Aldo clearly lost a step in the second fight, especially because of the damage he took throughout his career and through all the hard sparring. The fighters back then were sparring like it's wartime because they didn't understand, head trauma, CTE, stuff like that. And because of that, a lot of fighters lost their prime in like their early to mid 30s. It wasn't just Shogun and Aldo. It was a lot of fighters back then. For an example, Mike Brown, WC featherweight champion who Jose Aldo fought. He was out of his prime at 34 years old and retired at 37. Rory McDonald lost his prime at like 28 years old. He went to a draw with John Fitch at 29, when John Fitch was an ancient relic. Carlos Condit was out of his prime at like 31, 32 years old. Remember how horrible he looked against Damian Maia and Neil Magny? And he was on that loss streak. He was like 32 years old. Anthony Pettis lost his prime at like 33. That's why Anthony Pettis fought like Nate Diaz, Carlos Diego Ferreira. So yeah, Shogun is really good in his prime. And then what do you think about the GFL and their current matchups? I think it's good. I think it's entertaining, right? Tony Ferguson's there. I think Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman are going to be fighting. Dylan Dennis was supposed to fight Tony Ferguson, I think. But then I guess Dylan Dennis was going to fight KSI in boxing, and then that fight's not happening, so I don't even know. I think it's cool though. As always, keep the content going. Thank you so much, man, and great questions. Then go to Troy Hartung. Do you think Conor McGregor deep down cares or even knows that he's ruined his legacy, reputation, and public image the last few years? And looking back at it now, did getting all that money from the Floyd boxing match end up being more of a curse rather than a blessing for him, considering how much of the public sees him now? And why do you think he refuses to admit he's not motivated to get back to competing in the UFC? He always says that the UFC is holding him back from fighting, but we all deep down know that if he really wanted to fight as soon as possible, Dana would make it happen, especially considering how bad the UFC's pay-per-view numbers have been lately, according to ESPN. Yeah, I think he does. He did, I don't know if it's on his Instagram story, but he did like repost somewhere a picture of Prime Conor would beat this Conor in a fight. So yeah, he actually reposted that, and it seems like he agrees. Now, I'm not going to say the Floyd fight was a curse. Everything has pros and cons, right? It's just how you deal with them. Conor making all that money against Floyd. The pros were that he never would have to fight again. He set him and his family up for generations. But the money can easily get to your head. It's happened to so many people. But I don't think it was just the money. I think what changed Conor was his lack of motivation for MMA specifically. And that lack of motivation, I don't think just came from the money, because Conor had another goal as well. He had two goals when he stepped into the UFC. One of them, of course, to make money, so him and his family would never have to work again. But he had a competitive goal as well, become a double weight world champion, replicating what he did in Cage Warriors. But because he already accomplished his MMA goal before fighting Floyd, what else was there for him in the UFC? That's why he called out Floyd after he beat Eddie Alvarez. He didn't call out an MMA fighter. He didn't want to defend his title. He wanted to get into boxing and make life-changing money. Of course, he was competitive, so he wanted to beat Floyd, but he was happy after the fight. I mean, these guys were laughing together, pouring up drinks together as two businessmen that made hundreds of millions of dollars together. I think from that point, Conor had no more motivation to fight in MMA until the next goal became rivalries that just came up spontaneously for him. Come back to fight Khabib because they hated each other. That became a new goal for him. He lost that fight. He came years later to fight Donald Cerrone. I think because he was bored, honestly. He didn't have to fight Donald Cerrone, and he fought a guy who was tailor-made for him to win. He was bored and wanted to just prove to himself that he can still fight. And after Cerrone, he wanted to fight Diego Sanchez. Then he used Dustin Poirier as a sparring dummy to get ready for Manny Pacquiao. That rivalry turned sour, and it became a new goal for himself to end that rivalry by beating Dustin. Conor wasn't really in it to be competitive with the best fighters at that point. I think he was honestly just bored. Bro was fighting Donald Cerrone, wanted to fight Diego Sanchez, and didn't take the Dustin Poirier fight seriously, coming out there like a boxer getting ready for a southpaw Manny Pacquiao. That doesn't seem like a fighter who was motivated to be the best in the world. I don't think Conor is actually like passionate or motivated, and he hasn't been, especially now that he has no more rivalries. All of his rivals are pretty much retired. He won the 2 belts. He made all the money in the world. There's nothing left for him in MMA. I think if he fought Floyd Mayweather before winning the 2nd belt, he still would have been motivated and fought often enough to win that belt. And yes, if he wanted to fight, he could fight. I don't think the UFC's holding him back like that. He's Conor McGregor. Bro, if he wanted to fight, they would let him fight. They wouldn't just hold him on the shelf for years. They wouldn't want to capitalize on Conor fighting. The pay-per-view numbers are down. Of course they want him around. And of course they want him to fight often. They'd have Conor fight a broomstick. And I guarantee that would draw like 700,000 buys just by itself. Oh, Conor is fighting a broomstick? I wonder if that broomstick stands a chance. But great question, man. And then with a Dental Heart. Hey Weasel, how would a fight between Sean Brady and Islam Makhachev play out at 170? So they'll go down the basic categories of each fighter. Islam's a better striker, Islam's a better wrestler. Grappling's close, right? I don't know who would be better there, but Brady is bigger. He's most likely stronger, but he might be slower. We don't know how fast Islam is at 170 or how strong he would be. But I doubt he would get up to 198 pounds or whatever Sean Brady said. I don't think Islam would be that heavy. Islam would probably be in the 180s at welterweight. So I do think Sean Brady would get takedowns. He'll mix up his striking, shoot against the fence, and I think he would get the fight to the ground. How does Islam do on his back? We rarely ever see that. We know he can scramble, shown in the Armin fight, so he at least has that ability, but Brady is bigger and stronger than anyone Islam's ever fought before. And he's also the best overall, well-rounded grappler. Combined with that, which is a very tough mix for anybody jumping into that weight class to fight Sean Brady. So I think Islam can land counter shots and precisely land through some of the combinations of Sean Brady. He could potentially land some high kicks here and there, but it's a tough fight. I'm probably going with Sean Brady though. Probably go Sean Brady by decision. Very close fight. They'll go to Tim Naste. Is heavyweight Jon Jones the worst champion of all time? Jones won the title in March of 2023. It's now March of 2025. In that time frame, the title has been defended once against old man number 8 ranked Stipe, who hadn't won a fight since 2020, all while there has been an interim champion since November of 2023. And now Jones is asking for 6 more months to prep for Aspinall. That would make it almost 2 years ago Tom won the interim title. I can't think of any champion doing anything close to this in my time of watching MMA. Yeah, it's not even close. You could potentially say the only worse champion than that may have been Germaine de Randamie at featherweight, because she literally vacated her title instead of fighting Cyborg. But I mean, no, that's not worse than Jon Jones, because she never defended her title. Jon Jones at least fought somebody, and that somebody was your grandpa from the nursing home. But Jones is holding on to the belt and refusing to fight Tom. Germaine at least vacated her title, right? She was supposed to fight Cyborg. Dude, Jon Jones is a worse champion at heavyweight than Germaine de Randamie was. He's about to be the longest reigning heavyweight champion in UFC history. We have never seen a champion refuse to vacate the belt and at the same time refuses to fight the number 1 contender. That's never happened in the last 30 plus years of the sport. Now, if Jon Jones fights Tom Aspinall, if he actually gets in there and fights him, then it will turn the entire thing around, right? Okay, Jones wasn't scared. He actually fought him. He's not the worst champion in UFC history, but he needs to fight Tom Aspinall or vacate the belt. That's it. That's literally it. Defend or vacate, as the great Al Kakui once said, as he tips his sunglasses. Then we're going to Hafizan Karal. How does Islam Makhachev and Carlos Prates do against the current welterweight top 15? Also, how does Pantoja do against the current bantamweight top 15? Lastly, early prediction for Tony versus Dylan Dennis. Keep up the great content always. I love your videos. Greetings from Singapore. Thank you so much, man. And shout out to Singapore. Islam Makhachev versus Michael Page. He beats Michael Page. He beats Vicente Luque. He beats Carlos Prates. He beats Michael Morales. He beats Stephen Thompson, Jeff Neal, Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, Ian Gary. Joaquin Buckley's a tough fight, but I think he beats him. He beats Jack Della Maddalena. Kamaru Usman now. Prime Usman would have been different. Destroys Leon. Loses to Shavkat. Loses to Brady. And I think he beats Belal, but I might be taking too much of what Belal says about it, right? He might be just giving a lot of respect to Islam when he says that he gets ragdolled in training against him. But I'll take Bilal's word at that, and I'll say Islam beats him. And then Carlos Prates. I think he loses to Michael Page. Like, it's hard to just strike with that guy, right? Unless Carlos has some good wrestling, then it'll be a tough fight for him. He beats Luque, beats Morales, beats Stephen Thompson now, beats Jeff Neal, beats Colby, beats Burns, beats Ian Gary, loses to Buckley, loses to Jack Della, beats Usman, loses to Leon, loses to Shavkat, loses to Sean Brady, and then loses to Belal. Now, the reason why I think he loses to Leon is because Leon actually has decent enough striking, especially defensively, to move away from some of those punches, and he might be able to get takedowns under those. And then Pantoja at bantamweight beats Montel Jackson, beats Ariel Helwani or Ayman Zahabi, beats Marcos McGee, beats Kyler Phillips, Jose Aldo, Mario Batista, Henry Cejudo, Rob Font, Marlon Vera, loses to Song Yadong, beats Davidson Figueiredo in the rematch, beats Corey Sandhagen, loses to Umar, loses to Jan, loses to O'Malley, and loses to Merab. And then for Tony versus Dylan Dennis, in an MMA fight, I want to go with Tony, but like Dylan Dennis is actually really good on the ground. Dylan Dennis is bigger than him. He could take him down and submit him, but I'll go with Tony. I'll just go with Tony. Dylan Dennis is trash. And then we go to Tyrone Winter. Bro wrote a novel. Look how long this thing, bro. Please answer this. Sorry, I know it's long. Okay, so this is what you ask. What I'm basically trying to ask, was Leon really off that night? Or is Belal just a better fighter than even someone like Usman in his prime? Is Leon just inconsistent? I need another opinion on this. No, Leon was not off that night. Leon always fights like that. And now that he fought Sean Brady, again, that's how Leon fights. He doesn't have that dog in him. No, he doesn't have, I guess, yeah, he just doesn't have that dog in him. Leon does not change the way he fights, either when he's winning or losing. Even when he's winning, he's cruising. When he's losing, he's cruising. It's cruise control the entire way into a decision. Or until a head kick knockout against Usman, which seems to be a lightning in the bottle kind of moment, but I don't think it was a fluke. I think it was a good head kick. And this may be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Leon landed that kick because he showed his heart. I don't think that's the reason he knocked him out. I think it was him fighting the way he always does. And he had the opening for the head kick. That was it. He also threw a head kick at Belal in the 5th round and it didn't land. Like, it could have been the same moment and it just wasn't because Belal blocked it. He was also throwing more power punches at Belal in the 5th round. He was making more of an attempt to get the knockout against Belal than he did against Usman. When he fought that 5th round against Usman, he wasn't throwing as much. Against Belal, he actually made more of an effort to get the knockout. So I think that knockout win against Usman was not because of the motivational speech. It wasn't because he showed his heart or anything like that, right? It makes it for a cool story, but then really look at the other fights. Look at the 5th round of the Belal fight and compare that to the way he fought Usman. It's just he had the head kick opening. He didn't force it open, right? He didn't aggressively go right after Usman and then land the head kick. No, he was actually moving back. A fighter who's showing urgency is someone who's moving forward, trying to get the knockout. A fighter who's showing his heart is someone who's moving forward, right? That's not what Leon was doing. Leon was staying technical like he always does. And again, against Belal, he tried to throw the head kick. It just didn't land. If Usman blocked the head kick, nobody would be thinking about, oh, Leon showed his heart and the motivational speech helped him win. No, it was based on technique, not necessarily heart. So Leon always fights this way, every single time, no matter who he's fighting, no matter how the fight is going. That's just the way Leon fights. They go to Yoel Castro. Seeing Leon's hairline the past weekend got me thinking, in your opinion, what are the top 5 worst hairlines in UFC history? Seriously, Leon should just go bald. Thanks, Weasel. Love the channel. Thank you so much, man. Like, Merab had an island on his head before he had the hair transplant. Oh, but without a doubt, #1 pound for pound worst hairline in the UFC, easily by far, no debate, no question whatsoever, goes to Charles Johnson. What is that on the back of his head? Bro's hairline starts at the back of his neck. Bro, it's like someone super glued a squirrel on the back of his head. Bro, his hairline sprinted away from his face. Oh, Dominic Reyes, 100%, dude. There's a battle between the peaks of his hairline, and that right side's getting destroyed. Mateusz Rebecki should just go bald. Joe Pyfer looking like the ginger Vegeta. They're going to trouble on the waters. Hey, Weasel, with the strange scoring we've seen recently, if you had to create your own version of MMA scoring, simplistic or comprehensive, what would it look like? What would you keep from the unified rules we have now, and what would you get rid of? So I do like the damage-based scoring, not exactly how it's defined, but I think that focus is necessary. Damage should be the thing that's most rewarding in a fight. But at the same time, I do think aggression and octagon control should somewhat be scored along with effective striking and effective grappling. So I do agree with the criteria, but I do think they should all be scored, with effective striking and grappling weighing heavier. With the way the scoring is, it's nearly impossible to go to aggression and octagon control, you know? It's all going to be about striking and grappling. Also, with the 10-point must system, I think they should use more of the scoring, right? Use more of the numbers. They only go down to 10-7. What's the point of that? They just seem so arbitrary. Not every 10-9 is an equal round, especially in the same fight. So I do think the 10-point must system, if it's going to be used for a fight, it should be scaled to that fight. For an example, one round is competitive, both fighters have their moments, but let's say one of them dished out slightly more damage. He wins that round by 10-9. The second round, the other fighter, it's not dominant, but it's a lot more of a convincing round for the other fighter. How is that also a 10-9? How is that equal to the first? It shouldn't be. That should be a 10-8. And then let's say the third round is absolute domination. That should be like a 10-7 or 10-6. I think that could fix the scoring a lot, but it does make it a lot more arbitrary and subjective. Again, the scoring criteria is always going to be subjective no matter what, unless you have AI or something. But the people who are scoring the fights and writing on those scorecards are doing so through a subjective lens, and there's no way around that. Maybe adding more to the 10-point must system would just make it a lot more arbitrary, but I do think it would fix a lot of the robberies. Another thing too, I don't think lacerations and bruising should be as significant for impact. So I would keep the impact definition, but the whole thing about cuts and bruises, I don't think is as important, because some fighters have scar tissue. A grazing jab opens up that cut and they're most likely going to win the round. It's crazy. If Nick Diaz was fighting often today, he wouldn't win a single fight. He would have to finish his opponent every fight. He has scar tissue all over his eyes. I would also add open scoring. I think it's good to know where the scorecards are at in the middle of the fight, because then we could see if one of the judges is completely off with their scoring by round 2 or 3 or something like that, you know? And the fighters will know as well. So if one fighter thinks he's winning, but one of the judges is scoring for the other fighter, it will get him to try to finish the fight more. With open scoring, you'll never have a fight where both of the fighters are coasting. Never. At least one of the fighters is always going to be trying to get the finish. Or in a scenario where it's 2-2 going to the 5th, both fighters know they need a finish, and they would fight that way too. So those are some of the changes I would make to the scoring. They go to AS the 5th. Brady versus Buckley. Who, how, and why wins? I think Brady wins. I think he would out-wrestle and submit Buckley. Buckley's better in the stand-up probably, just because of his punching power. I don't think he's like super technical, but he has enough firepower to win most of the striking exchanges. But he explodes so much that he could open a takedown for Brady. And I don't think Buckley has the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to survive on the ground with Brady. So I think Brady will level change, get the fight to the ground, rear naked choke, submit him. They go to Sleepy Squirtle. Hey Weasel, what do you think is worse for a division? Fighters who sit on a rank and flatly refuse to fight anyone below them, or a division where the champion is inactive and wants to cherry pick fights? Jon Jones. I mean, they're kind of both Jon Jones, if you don't count the Stipe fight, but it's the second one. The champion's inactive, wants to cherry pick fights. That's way worse than a fighter just sitting on his ranking, because the champion is the one who's moving the division forward. That's almost like when the champion's not fighting, it's almost like clogging up a stream of water. It has nowhere else to go, so it gets like clogged up at the end. That's what Jon Jones is doing to heavyweight. They go to Mr. Spiraling. Favorite fighter in your 3 favorite martial arts combat sports. So, of all time, in MMA, it's Anderson Silva. In boxing, it's Thomas Hearns. I guess the next would be Muay Thai, and maybe it's Saenchai, but that's going to be a common one. Another question by Sleepy Squirtle. Who is the biggest underachiever in MMA of all time? Yoel Romero is the answer for me. Put himself consistently in position to be a champion, and had all the tools needed, but weight issues and failure to win. Just that one fight against Rob or Izzy, even though they were close fights, just frustrated me. Would have loved to see him as champion. He'll always be the 187.5 pound champion for me. Thanks, Weasel. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, man. And yeah, Yoel's a good answer for that. He got very close so often, and he could have won. I mean, a lot of people do think that he beat Robert Whittaker, and some people think that he beat Adesanya. If he just did more in the Adesanya fight, I think he would have won. But yeah, I agree with you. Yoel Romero's maybe the biggest underachiever, just because of how much talent and potential the guy had, and how close he got to winning the belt. The way to Yoel Castro, do you think it is possible for trash talk to truly go too far? Thanks, Weasel. Love the content. Oh, yeah. Do you guys remember the story with, who was it? Matt Hughes, right? At UFC 63. So this fight was in Anaheim, California. So Matt Hughes, he wins his fight, right? He fought BJ Penn and he TKO'd him. The fight was great. Matt Hughes defended his belt for, what was it, like the second time after winning it again? And then there was this savage who walked in there. He was wearing like red and white. I don't know why. Grabbed the mic and had the gall to tell the welterweight champion, "I'm not impressed with your performance." I couldn't believe it. I'm surprised they didn't just ban the sport right there. What about the time where they call him the American gangster? I don't know why they call him that. And he started telling a story about these 2 brothers that came into America. I guess they were from Brazil, and they were trying to feed a bus a carrot. It was too far. It was way too far. Yes, trash talk can absolutely go way too far. But to be serious, I mean, I don't think so. These guys are punching each other in the face, like the insults and stuff like that. It can be distasteful. Like, bringing up family and stuff like that is not great. I don't think most fans like it. But the question is it possible for trash talk to go too far? Right, so that's like a question if the UFC is going to allow it. And I think the UFC allows the fighters to say pretty much anything, because at the end of the day, they're going to be punching each other in the face. They're getting into a physical fight where they're going to try to inflict brain damage on each other, break an arm, stuff that's generally worse than trash talk, Like, we heard a lot of things from the Conor Khabib press conferences and build up to that fight, so the UFC is pretty open with trash talk. They're going to add Astra stake pool. Jon Jones wants $30 million to fight Tom Aspinall. Number 1, is he pricing himself out, or are the UFC being unreasonable with their fighter pay? That might be too much. But with the leverage that Jon Jones has, knowing that the Netflix deal is there, it's a good move for Jones. right? For himself to make as much money as possible. And number two, what would need to happen for the UFC to start paying their top fighters as much as what the top boxers get paid? The UFC has too much power over their fighters. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But what would need to happen? They would have to unionize. They would have to get together. There's no other way. But yeah, UFC fighters making like Canelo money or Tyson Fury money, that's never happening. And number three, should Jones be stripped of the heavyweight belt if he refuses to fight Aspinall for less than his asking price? Love your content. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, man. Yes, if Jones refuses to fight Aspinall for any reason, he should be stripped of the belt. Whether it's because of the asking price or he just doesn't like Tom Aspinall's hair, he should not be the heavyweight champion if he refuses to fight the number one contender. Flat out. Then we're going to Thunderverse. How would Prime GSP do in the current welterweight division? I think he beats everybody. There's some tough fights, but I think GSP is better than every welterweight in history. The only welterweight in history I think that could have beaten him was maybe Kamaru Usman. And then with a Koi. Hey Weasel, with all the negativity about fight night quality, should fighters be held responsible to some extent to make these more appealing, i.e. hyping their own cards, putting on more risky performances, or better mic presence? Love your work, my guy. Thank you so much, man, and good question. So I don't think it should be totally up to the fighters. The fighters should only be focusing on winning, honestly. And with hyping up the cards, that should be more on the UFC. But they're leaving it so much to the fighters to do that. Now for themselves, the fighters should put on the best performances and should probably have the best mic skills. But if they just don't have that, they're just not charismatic, there's nothing they can really do, you know? They just have to fight at the best of their abilities. I think the UFC should try to promote their fighters more than they are. I mean, they are the promotion, right? The promotion should be promoting the cards better. And by promoting cards better, they should improve the quality of them, I think. But yeah, the fighters, I do think, should put on better performances at the same time, which I think they're usually trying to do. But it's very hard, man. They're fighting at the highest level. They go to Ahmed Risk. Would Jones still be the 205 champion if he never vacated after Reyes? Please break down these fights. So, Jones versus Reyes rematch. I'll just say who wins. I would say Jones beats Reyes. Jones beats Jan. He beats Adesanya easily. Beats Prime Glover in a rematch. Beats Yuri. Beats Hill. Beats Ankalaev and Alex. Yeah, I don't think there is any light heavyweight that would beat Jon Jones. Look at JG. New mythical fighter unlocked. Jon Jones with prep time. Yeah, he's always been that. You mean cycle time?